This is PPD. You guys are watching Thorin's YouTube channel. One of the only men with a bigger ego than even myself.
Dota 2's The International is the best tournament in all of esports, and on practically every single level it delivers. It gives you amazing games every single year, many of them. It gives you absolutely spectacular storylines, underdogs making crazy runs, big favourites falling, very strong teams making the expected deep finishes, matchups of the teams that you want to see play against each other, unexpected matchups. It has the huge spectacle you'd want of a world championship level event, a once in a lifetime type event for someone to win. In line with that, it has life-changing prize money to be won. It's not merely an issue of like, you got to win a bunch of these, or like, oh, I won a big tournament, but like my esport isn't big enough yet. No, this has the biggest prize purses in all of esports. And crucially, it gathers the very best competitors, the best teams with the best players every single year in, I would say, the most coherent and consistent manner of any big esports circuit and qualification method. So let's start with how it gathers those teams. First of all, as has always been the case at the International, it operates on an invite system. Now, in the past, they used to literally just use an individual to decide who got invited based on the rest of the Dota 2 tournament circuit. So if you win a bunch of big tournaments or an aggregate, you have a lot of finals, a lot of top fours, you get invited. And there's very rarely that much dispute until you get right down to the bottom of the invites. The top 4 or 5 are always going to be right. Now, technically now it doesn't use an actual invite system like that. It basically uses a mathematical version of that because they have the Dota Pro circuit now where you get circuit points, and therefore the teams that are in the top X of the Pro circuit get their invite to Dota 2's The International. Then you stop, so that gathers the best teams there, but then you go to the format of the tournament. This is what provides the amazing games, almost guaranteed, and the crazy storylines, because first of all, before you even get to the playoffs, the International has uniquely always used a format where in the past, either no teams go out of the tournament in the group stage, or the majority of the teams go to the playoffs and only a few go out. Except for, I think it was TI4 was the one with the most went out, like maybe like 4 teams or 6 teams went out in the group. I think it was 6, right? No, maybe it would be 4. This year, only 2 teams went out. So of the 16 teams, 14, well, more than that, it'd be 18 this time, 16 are going to the playoffs. And what you do is, the group stage is to start the tournament off, to get people used to the tournament meta, to show you what some of the matchups might be like, so you can see who's strong, who's not. There's still something very crucial to play for, which is that you want to be in the upper bracket, which you have to come in the top part of the group, whatever system you're using, to get. Otherwise, you're going to start in the lower bracket with only 1 tournament life. You want to have the 2 lives. You want to get a good seeding to be up there. You want to start in the upper bracket to make it as few games as possible to get deep into that prize money, but you're not eliminating teams. Teams can still, in theory, do that miracle run through the lower bracket if they figure something out. They don't just play in the group stage and get eliminated. That's key because you don't get big favorites just getting knocked out at the beginning because they get sniped a couple of times, have one bad game against another big team, and suddenly they're out of the tournament, as happens in other big world championship level events, majors and CSGO, for example. Then you've got to add in, once you get to the playoffs, it's double elimination. So first of all, you get 2 tournament lives if you start in the upper bracket. So if you really are one of the best teams who gets to that point in the tournament, you don't just have one bad game in a 3-game best of 3 series where it was 1-1 and then you just lose like one big team fight and you're out of the whole tournament. No, then you go to the lower bracket and someone else has to beat you. Or you get a chance sometimes to rematch with someone that you played either in the group stage or in the upper bracket, again in the lower bracket or maybe the final. And that rematch potential provides for some amazing games. Like that is one of the most underrated aspects in all of esports as far as I'm concerned. Because when I've seen in other games, either people discuss the concept of double elimination or it actually take place, I've heard people who tend to be more casual and don't have as much experience with the game say silly things like, yeah, but where's the hype going to be when you've already played an opponent before, you know, and they've already beaten you in that match before? When great teams play off, it has been my experience that each time they play, it becomes a game within a game based on what they both know about each other from the last time. They're trying to adapt. They're trying to now focus a certain strength to give them a better chance to win. They're trying to shore up a certain weakness or avoid it entirely. The other team knows that themselves and is taking that into account. So actually, when you have really great teams, and especially when they're teams that are very well matched up, the games get better and better, quite frankly, because of that foreknowledge that people have and what they then do with it in the next game. Just look at this international here, where in the grand final, we had OG playing against PSG LGD. These teams met 3 times in this tournament. In the group stage, it was 1-1. Great series. In the upper bracket final, it was 2-1. Game 3 was incredible. Both teams could have won it. In the final, the best of 5, it was one of the best of 5. Obviously, at the International, we've only ever had 2, but one of the best finals we've had at the International. Amazingly close. Again, LGD could have won, but on 3 separate occasions, LGD wasn't able to come out on top. 1-1 in the group stage, 2-1 in the upper bracket final for OG, 3-2 for OG in the final. Now that means over the tournament, they actually played, what would it be? Would be 10 games, right? So they played 10 games and OG only won 6 of them, but won the tournament. Amazing matchups again and again and again. If this had been a single elimination tournament, like a Counter-Strike tournament, yeah, you know what? We'd have had a sick final. We'd have had the upper bracket final, same teams, and they would have won in a close fashion in game 3. But if you're LGD, how can you even complain? You could complain after that upper bracket final, like, oh, it was so close, oh, things just went badly, we misplayed it. You can't complain when you played a team 3 times. You can't complain when you played them in a best of 5, having already played them before and knowing their strengths, having an idea of how they play and giving it at your absolute all. When you've lost 2 lives in a tournament like that, you have to just give it up and say, you know what, well played. You played better on the day, you win the tournament. So you also don't get that like regret factor to the same degree, like, I got the wrong opponent in the upper bracket. I've never played them before and they did something cheesy that I've never expected. No, you know what to expect from them when you have these great rematches. Then double elimination also provides incredible lower bracket runs. It means that you get teams like, obviously, you can think of some great examples. One of the best ever would have to be the Team Liquid squad of last year, that lower bracket run that let them win the tournament, as opposed to get eliminated way earlier than expected in the upper bracket. Then you've got to add in, if you have just an upper bracket, well, in most tournaments, you never get great seeding anyway when you go to what would then be a single elimination match. And so you either get 2 great teams playing the round of 8, and so the second best team in the tournament might go out in the round of 8 when really they were the second best team, or you get a team that loses there and everyone goes, nah, they weren't that good. But in a double elim, makes a sick run all the way through. So the lower bracket almost provides an element of error correcting by giving someone an extra life. Likewise, you get numerous teams who are very good, who make a deep run in the upper bracket, drop down, but then immediately lose, and shows that, you know what, actually they weren't that close to winning. They weren't the second best team there. They ended up losing out and someone in the lower bracket did take care of them. So it error corrects on both sides. It's worth pointing out for anyone who thinks, yeah, but then the final's going to be boring. Like, 3 out of the 8 champions, almost 4 with LGD here, and in fact, could have been 5 out of 8, because Na'Vi obviously could have won that TI3. 3 out of the 8 champions of the International came from the lower bracket. This is a format that's proven to produce incredible storyline runs, including winning the championship from the lower bracket. So the format gives you a higher chance of amazing matches, of amazing runs. That alone sets the table for the great games. You can't ever make great games happen. Teams will play badly sometimes, or there'll be mismatches, or the 2 teams you wanted to see might not meet. But you know what? If you have a double elim tournament, and you have a tournament like this where you don't go out early on, it makes it more likely you have the matchups that you want to see happen. It makes it more likely that a very good team makes it deeper in the tournament. It makes it more likely that someone who wasn't that good but has an inspired run can do something incredible. It sets the table, and then the players come and they do the rest with all those tools and all that room to play, and they give us the great matches. And that's why consistently TI outperforms other tournaments in terms of number of great matches provided. It has more matches, but also the format almost incentivizes more great matches than a different format. In fact, I actually think the double elim format means that upper bracket, you also might even play a little bit looser, be willing to take risks, whereas in a single elim tournament, you're so scared for your life the whole time that you actually tend to sometimes have some boring stall-out games in games like League of Legends and CSGO. Then you've got to look, because the tournament takes place over so long. In CSGO, we were using majors. Even now, they last not even all of 3 weeks, but about 3 weeks. It used to in the past last 5 days, then we got to a week. League of Legends, They had a month or so. What's great about the amount of time here is it means you can spread the matches out. You don't have to stack matches on top of each other and have 4 best of 3s in a day like we've had in some of the past majors, 3 best of 3s in some of them. You can have time to play the matches, which lets you build the hype. The journalists can do their job between the days. It means you can do the interviews between the matches and really set the stage. And it gives the talent the full time, not only to set up the storyline, explain who these teams are, but have loads of time before and after a match and in games between to analyse the draft, to tell you what they did in the game, to show you replays. Sometimes in CS, we might get 5 minutes. I had a major not that long ago, the E-League Atlanta major, where I had like 2 or 3 minutes sometimes after a game to tell you everything I had to say for analysis after the match. And sometimes he didn't come back in maps between the series always. That hasn't always been the case. Then you got to look, if you're talking about talent, at the massive talent base they invite to these things. In CSGO and in League of Legends, we're still battling like, oh, it's this person versus this person. Oh, it was close, but he didn't get to go. In the international, in the last few years, they basically have all the best talent go. So even if you like this guy and don't like that guy, at least you get to see your guy there. You get to see your favourites. Now, I had my issues myself with, I felt like they went too far once they had the big talent base within the playoffs, trying to give people more of a turn by like having each person do one map of a series and getting as many people on camera. I'm not that big a fan of that because I believe in a meritocracy. I don't think just because you should like share all the turn. I think the best people should do the final and should get the full crack at it and give you their full display of like game 1 and this is what I thought of game 2. Now we're going into game 3. But okay, that's a minor issue. You get to have all the talent there. And quite frankly, I've always said this about Dota 2. The area Dota 2 is the most stacked in and is in fact the best esport is they have the most really good analysts because they've got all those professional analysts in an open circuit so they see more games, unlike League of Legends. Then you've got all the ex-pros who were analysts temporarily or the ex-pros who now have become the best analysts. They just have the best scene entirely and they cover the whole global scene. It's not just someone from one region. They've got people who watch all of Dota and the open circuit anyway means you get all the top teams at most of the top tournaments anyway. It's not like regions in League of Legends that are all split up and therefore you have to have a guy for this region but a guy from the other region doesn't know that region as well. It's not like that. Now, I will say Dota used to really lack for a bit of banter. It doesn't necessarily still have as much as I like, but whatever. The games are so straight fire and the analysis is so good of the great games. It doesn't really end up mattering for the big tournament. I think banter's generally better for lesser games and in smaller tournaments to kind of keep people entertained, to lubricate the broadcast when it's getting a bit dry, as it were. That's why I use that terminology all the time. And now in Dota, they've got the best fucking hosts as well, haven't they? Because they've taken them from us in CSGO. They've got Red Eye, they've got Machine. I know technically Machine comes from other games, but he made his name in CSGO. That's where he got to the point where the international would pick him up. So they've now got the hosts as well, quite frankly. I still think they do lack a little bit of some other elements of entertainment, but as I say, it's not as important when you get to the biggest tournament of the year. One thing I've always loved, I've always thought this is so underrated because people in other esports games don't get what I'm saying when I say this, but I have always loved that the international is basically not just the World Championship. It's not just the biggest tournament. It's a festival of Dota. Like this is actually a thing where even if you go out in last place or you go out like early in the playoffs, you don't just say, right, well, what time's my flight? Can I get an earlier plane home? People tend to stay. They stay, they watch the games, they enjoy things, they meet the fans, they make it an entire experience, a celebration of Dota for those few weeks that the tournament's going on. It's not just something that comes and then they're out, oh, they've gone already, they went yesterday because they went out. This is something that doesn't happen in other esports. I've seen great teams quickly book a flight straight home when they went out of a massive tournament in Counter-Strike. It's depressing as fuck. And I also think it sets a good precedent for your players to make them stay and watch the whole tournament so that they're thinking the whole time, what have I got to do between this tournament and the next international so that I'm in that final? I'm in that winner's bracket final. I'm playing for a team that has a chance to win. Whereas if you just go home and put it out of mind, it's too easy to not have that winner's mentality, to have the same drive going for you. Then you've got to add that because other pros are still there who've gone out of the tournament, they become fans of the tournaments themselves. They're giving you their commentary on Twitter. They're cheering on certain teams, giving insight to other players, maybe even actually talking to some of the people they've played with in the past, giving them insight on Twitter DMs or whatever. Oh, keep going, bro, you can do it. As a result, every international is so memorable because of this element around it where the atmosphere is amazing and everyone's eyes are on the tournament as it goes down and down and down to the last few teams and everyone's waiting to see who wins. Then it's down on my list, but yeah, obviously the prize pool's a big deal. Now, Valve themselves puts up 1.6 million. That's fucking good as it is. Still more than an individual CSGO major, a little bit less than the League of Legends World Championship. But obviously the key thing that makes the international insane is the crowdfunding. Now, in this case, people always forget this. A lot of hack journalists who don't actually bother doing their research will report that, $25 million, the biggest prize pool in history for the international. What a lot of them always forget to say is that's only 25% of the money raised. That means $100 million was raised and 75 mil went to Valve. So sick, well done, Valve. But we get 100 mil from fans. What an amazing system that is. And then 25 million goes for the prize pool so that you get these insane first places and massive prize pools. So you can still come top 8 and make some really legit money. Now, players, I think, will play the same if it's $1 million for first place or 10 million. I think players are professionals. They've dedicated their lives to the game. It means more to them, to the prestige of winning the tournament, than just the money. I mean, I know like Samail made that comment, like, I'm only here to win money. I think if you actually look at his actions and who he's had kicked and who he's wanted to play with, I think he wants to play with certain people who he thinks are good teammates, who he likes more. And he hasn't always made the tough choices to keep certain people around that would have maybe given him a better chance. So I never bought that. I think it's a cool thing to say in interviews as trash talk. I don't buy it. I think players play for the prestige, quite frankly, and to be the greatest player. That's competition. But you know what? If you're a fan and you see it's 25 million or it's 10 million for first, or you're just a casual fan who knows a bit about Dota, and someone tells you, by the way, the winner of this game gets $7 million more, you immediately know, even without knowing about the Dota Pro circuit and what OG's done in the past and why maybe in Fi it's their time to win. They don't need to know any of that shit to know, holy fuck, this game's important. They don't need to know the prestige of it. Because, in the 1960s in basketball, it tormented Jerry West that he didn't win the NBA. Now, you didn't get loads of money for that. He wasn't a super global superstar. It mattered much to him as it does to win for LeBron James in 2018 if he has a chance to. But you know what? If you could have told someone who was trying to watch both games, by the way, the winner of this gets $10 million for his team, immediately people understand why it's sick. They don't have to know about the history of basketball. So for my money, the international on all fronts wrecks. The only way you could really say it's not the best tournament is maybe if you just hate MOBAs, you hate arts games, you hate Dota 2, you hate League, whatever. You can't handle those games. You can only handle FPS games or FIFA or something. Okay, I could see a world in which you might not enjoy it. But every other aspect is amazing as far as I'm concerned. This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Caesar, and special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion in particular. Want teasers for my upcoming content? How about asking me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? How about suggesting a topic or a guest for my content? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.